Every day, approximately 20 million barrels of crude oil move through a single stretch of water. One choke point, one narrow channel between two coastlines, the Strait of Hormuz. 40% of the world's seaborne oil supply passes through this corridor. There is no alternative route. There is no bypass. If this strait closes, global energy markets respond within hours. Fuel prices rise on every continent simultaneously. Economies that depend on uninterrupted supply begin to feel the pressure within days. The United States Navy operates the most powerful surface fleet in human history. Carrier strike groups, guided missile destroyers, cruisers with vertical launch systems capable of engaging dozens of targets simultaneously, submarines that can operate undetected for months. The question is not whether the US Navy has the power to control open ocean. It does. The question is this: why can't the most powerful navy on Earth simply escort oil tankers through a 21-mile wide strait and guarantee their safe passage? The answer is not about military capability. It is about physics. It is about geography. And it is about the mathematics of asymmetric warfare. A standard nautical chart of the Strait of Hormuz tells the story immediately. The total width of the strait at its narrowest point is approximately 21 miles. But the navigable shipping lanes, the channels deep enough for fully loaded supertankers drawing 60 feet of water, compress that number dramatically. Inbound traffic uses a lane roughly 2 nautical miles wide. Outbound traffic uses a separate lane of the same width. Between them, a separation zone. The actual corridor that a 300,000-ton laden tanker must use is 2 nautical miles across. 2 nautical miles. That is the operational reality. On both sides of those lanes, the terrain rises sharply. On the Iranian side, the Zagros mountain range extends to within kilometers of the coastline. Ridgelines and peaks reach over 2,000 meters above sea level. These mountains do not simply create difficult terrain. They create radar shadow zones, areas where shipborne and airborne radar systems cannot see because the terrain physically blocks the signal path. A destroyer positioned in the shipping lane has radar coverage across open water, but the ground-hogging terrain on the Iranian coastline creates blind spots, valleys, wadis, and coastal inlets that fall below radar line of sight. Launch positions in those dead zones are invisible to surface radar until a weapon is already in the air. The separation zone between inbound and outbound lanes is not a wide open buffer. In practice, the tanker traffic itself creates its own obstacle environment. On any given day, between 80 and 100 vessels are transiting the strait simultaneously. Supertankers, LNG carriers, container ships, product tankers, bulk carriers. Each one a massive radar return. Each one a potential source of confusion for automated threat detection systems. A warship providing escort is not operating in clean, open water with a clear radar picture. It is operating in one of the most congested maritime traffic corridors on the planet. Every vessel in that corridor is a data point. Every vessel could, in theory, be a threat. Iranian fast attack boats have historically operated among civilian traffic, using commercial vessels as cover to approach targets. The escort vessel must distinguish between a fishing dhow, a supply boat, and an armed fast attack craft in real time at close range and heavy traffic. Iran's coastal defense inventory includes supersonic anti-ship missiles, the Nur, the Kar, the Kal-Fars. These weapons travel at speeds approaching Mach 3. At that velocity, a missile fired from 5 nautical miles, well within the coastal dead zones created by terrain, reaches its target in under 60 seconds from launch detection. 60 seconds. That is the reaction window available to the escort vessel from the moment its sensors detect a launch to the moment of impact. In that window, the crew must classify the contact as a threat, confirm engagement authorization, bring a defensive weapon system to bear, and complete the intercept. The ship's close-in weapon system fires 3,000 rounds per minute. The standard missile family can engage supersonic targets, but the geometry of the strait makes that window extremely tight. A destroyer in open ocean has time and distance on its side. Radar horizon extends for miles. Incoming threats are detected early. The engagement timeline is measured in minutes, not seconds. In the strait, terrain compression eliminates that margin. The shot comes from behind a ridgeline. The detection range collapses from 30 miles to 3 miles. The 60-second clock starts at the worst possible moment. Saturation is the second problem. A single destroyer can engage a limited number of simultaneous incoming threats. Its magazine is finite. Its radar can track dozens of contacts, but its engagement capacity in a compressed timeline is not unlimited. Iran's doctrine for straight warfare does not depend on a single high-value missile defeating a destroyer's defenses. It depends on volume, multiple launch platforms, multiple weapons, multiple vectors simultaneously. The goal is not to defeat the escort. The goal is to overwhelm its defensive capacity by presenting more simultaneous threats than it can engage before one gets through. A single hit on a supertanker carrying 2 million barrels of crude oil does not require a precision strike. A breach in the hull, a fire in the cargo holds, a disabled propulsion system in a 2-mile wide lane, any of these outcomes closes the corridor as effectively as sinking the vessel outright. Surface threats are visible. They can be tracked, classified, and engaged. The underwater threat operates on different physics entirely. The limpet mine is one of the oldest naval weapons still in active use, a magnetic mine attached to a hull by a combat diver. No radar return, no sonar signature above ambient noise, no electronic emission. The device sits against the steel hull of a vessel and waits for a timer or a pressure trigger. A fully loaded supertanker has a hull area measured in thousands of square meters. Below the waterline, the vessel is exposed. The propeller shaft, the rudder assembly, the engine room plating. A charge placed against any of these structural points does not need to sink the vessel to achieve mission success. A disabled propeller in the middle of the shipping lane stops the vessel in place. A vessel stopped in a 2-mile wide channel is a blockage. The lane closes, traffic backs up. The effect on oil flow is immediate. The cost asymmetry is precise and documented. An Olympic mine costs approximately $500 to manufacture. The delivery system is a combat diver with a rebreather. No surface signature, no exhaust bubbles, approach range of several hundred meters against a slow-moving or anchored vessel. The vessel being targeted is worth between $100 million and $200 million. The cargo it carries is worth more than the hull. The economic disruption caused by a single successful attack on a laden supertanker in a confined channel is measured in hundreds of millions of dollars in cargo loss, insurance rate increases, and market reaction. No defensive system currently deployed can guarantee detection of a combat diver against a slow-moving hull in turbid Gulf water. Sonar performance degrades in shallow, warm, high salinity environments. The thermal layers in the Persian Gulf create acoustic conditions that reduce passive sonar effectiveness significantly compared to open ocean. The threat is real, documented, and not solved by surface combatant presence alone. The vessel being protected is not a warship. A very large crude carrier displaces 300,000 tons when fully laden. Its length exceeds 300 meters. Its beam exceeds 60 meters. It draws approximately 22 meters of water when loaded, which is why it is confined to specific deep water channels within the strait. Its maximum speed is approximately 15 knots. At that speed, in a 2-mile wide lane with traffic ahead and behind, its maneuver options are essentially zero. The tanker cannot accelerate out of a threat engagement zone. It cannot turn sharply. It cannot take evasive action in any meaningful sense within the confines of the shipping lane. If a threat is inbound, the tanker's survival depends entirely on the escort vessel defeating that threat before impact. There is no passive defense on the hull. There is no armor. There is no countermeasure system. The crew has no option but to maintain course and speed and rely entirely on the warship beside them. The United States has attempted large-scale tanker escort operations in the Strait of Hormuz before, Operation Earnest Will, from 1987 to 1988. The Iran-Iraq War had produced what became known as the Tanker War, deliberate attacks on commercial shipping by both sides to strangle each other's oil revenues. Kuwait requested U.S. protection for its tankers. The Reagan administration agreed. Kuwaiti tankers were reflagged under the American flag and assigned U.S. Navy escorts. The operation deployed significant naval assets: destroyers, frigates, minesweepers, helicopters, the largest U.S. naval escort operation since the Second World War. The intent was to deter attacks through visible force presence and direct protection of flagged vessels. On the 14th of April, 1988, USS Samuel B. Roberts struck a mine while operating in the Persian Gulf. The explosion blew a 4-meter hole in the hull. 10 sailors were wounded. The ship nearly sank. It was saved by damage control efforts and eventually repaired. The mine that struck the vessel was not delivered by a missile system. It was not fired from a sophisticated launch platform. It was a contact mine, a weapon design dating to the 19th century, placed in the shipping lane by a small vessel operating at night. The most sophisticated naval escort force deployed in a generation was defeated temporarily by a contact mine. The lesson from Ernest Will was not that escort operations are impossible. The lesson was that escort is a reactive posture. It manages the threat environment rather than eliminating it. As long as the threat infrastructure remains intact, the launch sites, the mine stockpiles, the fast attack boat bases, the command nodes, the escort vessel is always responding rather than preventing. Modern asymmetric warfare in confined maritime spaces reduces to a single mathematical problem. The defending force must succeed every time. The attacking force must succeed once. A destroyer on escort duty must defeat every mine, every missile, every fast attack boat, every combat diver, every drone, every simultaneous threat, indefinitely for the entire duration of every transit for every vessel in the convoy. A single failure in that defensive chain produces a result measured in hundreds of millions of dollars and potentially hundreds of lives. The attacking force needs one success, one mine that gets through, one missile that saturates the defensive engagement capacity by one round, one diver who reaches the hull of one vessel in one transit. The cost of that single success to the attacker is measured in thousands of dollars. The cost of the response, the insurance rate increases, the cargo diversion, the market reaction is measured in billions. This is not a failure of American military capability. It is a structural feature of confined waterway defense against a determined adversary who controls the surrounding terrain, has decades of operational experience in that specific environment, and has deliberately built a threat inventory optimized for exactly this geography. The oil does not stop moving because the military failed. The oil stops moving or becomes uninsurable, which produces the same economic result because the physics of the environment favor the defender of the shore over the defender of the lane. Terrain, reaction time, compression, cost asymmetry, mine warfare, diver delivery systems, volume saturation tactics, each of these factors individually is manageable. Together, in a 2-mile wide channel surrounded by hostile terrain, they compound into a defensive problem that surface escort alone cannot solve. 20 million barrels of oil per day, one narrow channel. The answer to why the most powerful navy on Earth cannot simply escort its way through is written in the geography of the strait itself. The solution, historically and operationally, has never been escort. It has always been the elimination of the threat at its source. The launch sites, the command infrastructure, the stockpiles. Until that is done, the convoy moves under risk. The escort manages that risk. It does not remove it.